All right. This is for Ellie and whoever's watching this, maybe from the fifth period class. I have no idea. 1-3, here's the homework assignment for that. It is a little bit changed from what was on the board yesterday. But anyway, skip 32 and then do those guys on page 31. There you go. Okay. Locating points and midpoints. Yesterday we did the distance formula. Now we're going to be doing the midpoint. Okay, finding the midpoint. I always say this. You'll hear me say this like 14 bajillion times before the end of this chapter. When you're finding the midpoint, okay? If I ask you to go to my grade book and I say, find the middle of these two grades, what am I asking you to find? The average. Finding the midpoint is like finding the average. So those two like a midpoint of two things is basically averaging those two things together. So I think average and midpoint are like interchangeable. Finding the midpoint is like finding the average, all right? So here's what we're going to do. We have I do this all the time and it drives my husband crazy because like if he won't hang pictures for me, I go and try to hang them myself. And it's a really fast way to get him to do what I want to do because he's like, you are not putting holes in my wall. Because I don't measure correctly and then I end up with extra holes in the wall and he gets mad. So this is like me right here trying to figure this math out, all right? Find the midpoint if AB, if A is located 15 inches in from that side, so that is 15 inches in from the left side, and B is at 37 and a half inches in. Okay, so B, this point B right here is at 37 and a half inches in. I want to find the middle like here. I want to find where that middle piece is. Okay, so how can I do that?
Well, if you're smart, you would move the ruler over so that...
I know, so then it was starting at 0, right? If I was smart, but I'm not smart. So anyway.
You subtract 30.
Okay, so I've had people say you subtract 37 and 15. So 37.5 and 15, and I subtract those. Oop, and I get like 22 and a half, right? Yeah? And then what? So 22 and a half is from here to here. Then what?
11.25.
Yep, divided by 2, sure, is 11.25, right? So that means from here to here is 11.25, got it? And from here to here is 11.25, right? So if I'm trying to figure out how far in from here over,
then you add 15.
Add 15 to the 11.25, so I am 26.25 inches over from like this starting side right here. 26.25 inches over will give me that starting or like where I need to put my nail at. Yeah? Okay, now that's a thing. Like you can do that, but I said finding the midpoint is like finding the average. 15 and 37.5. If I add those together, 5, 2, carry the 1, 52 and a half. And then you add them together and you divide by 2, right? What's 52 and a half divided by 2? I'm going to guess it's about 26.25.
I like my way better.
You like your way better. I mean, you know, whatever way you want to do, but I'm just saying that that's how you can do that, right? You're finding the average, you're just doing that, right? Okay, so you can subtract and divide by 2 and then add back or do whatever you want to, but that's how this works, okay? Now, finding the midpoint, let's say I'm doing 2 coordinate points, right? So I'm saying, like, find me the middle if I have one coordinate point at -6, 3 and the other coordinate point at 1, 0, okay? So -6 and 1 are my x coordinates, correct? And 3 and 0 are my y coordinates, okay? So all I'm going to do is do 2 different averages, right? This is like the average for x, average x's, and this is the average for the y's. All I do is average the x's together and I average the y's together. Does that make sense? I'm adding the x's and dividing by 2. I'm adding the y's and dividing by 2. That's all I do, right? Okay, so when I do that, I'm going to do the x's first. So here we go. We've got our parentheses. I'm going to take -6 and I'm going to add it to 1. And divide that by 2. And then I'm going to take 3 and add that to 0 and divide by 2. And I get an answer. And that's where our midpoint is. That's where our average is, right? -6 plus 1 is -5. Divided by 2 is like -2.5 or -2.5. Okay? 3 plus 0 divided by 2 is 1.5. So there is my midpoint. If I had these two like as dots on my line, right? This guy right here in the middle is that guy. -2.5, comma 1.5. Does that make sense? You're just averaging the x's, averaging the y's. Not too bad, right? That's how you find the midpoint. Every time I say midpoint, think average. I'm just averaging the x's and y's together, okay? Good? All right, now they're going to be a little bit more confusing. Ready? I'm going to draw a picture of what this looks like, okay? Find the coordinates of J if K is at negative 1, 2, and K is the middle. K is the midpoint of JL, right? So I'm going to say J is here, L is here, K is the midpoint. And we have the coordinate for the midpoint. This is at negative 1, 2, right? L has a coordinate of 3, negative 5. I want to find what J is. I don't know what he is.
Well, they are
Well.
far apart and 7 up. So
Yeah. Okay. So I like your idea, right? Negative 1 from negative 1 to 3 is 4 units, correct? Okay. So that means that if this is the halfway mark, this has to be 4 units on this side. So what's my x coordinate going to be over here?
negative 5.
Negative 5. Do you see how we got that? 4 units to the right versus 4 units to the left. Okay. Now going from 2 to negative 5,
It'll be 9.
that is going 7 down. So this is minus 7. So to get this coordinate,
Positive 7.
I have to go plus 7. So it's going to be at 9. Do you see how that works? 9 minus 7 is 2. 2 minus 7 is negative 5. Yeah? It's the same distance. The x's are the same distance. The y's are the same distance. Does that make sense? So I have found him very easily, and he is that. Yeah? Yeah, not too bad. Okay, good. All right, next one. Find the measure of PQ. Okay, so I want to know what this distance is. This distance is labeled as 9y minus 2. Blah. This distance is labeled as 14 plus 5y, and they're saying Q is the midpoint. If that is the midpoint, what do I know to be true?
That 14 plus 5y equals.
Yes, this chunk right here is equal to this chunk right here. I'm going to set those two things equals, and then I'm going to solve. So 9y minus 2 equals 14 plus 5y, right? If that is truly exactly in the middle, those two chunks should be equal, yeah? Okay? Gabe, you following along? You better follow along. Okay? So those two things are equal. And what now? What would you like to do to solve? Yep. What would you like to do first?
Add the 2, subtract the 5y.
Yep, I'm a minus 5y. Okay, so he's gone over here. Minus 5y. And I'm going to add the 2 at the same time. Can we do that? That's not overloading our brain. Okay, 9y minus 5y is 4y equals 16. So y is 4. But that's not the right answer.
No,
Read what they wanted.
yeah,
Find
put
the
in-
measure of PQ. Okay, PQ is 9y minus 2. So 9y minus 2 is
34.
36 minus 2 is 34. That's what we want. PQ is 34. PQ equals 34. There you go. Happy with that? Always read back the instructions again to make sure, because they probably are going to ask you for a chunk of it rather than just to do, the one. Okay, good? All right, here we go. Ready for this? This is where it gets a little interesting. Find x from A to F such that it is 1/6 of the distance from A to F. Okay, let's find out the distance from A to F to start with. A is at negative 7 and F is at 5.
12.
Okay, this has a distance of 12, right? Okay, and I want to go 1/6 of that distance. What's 1/6 of 12? 2, right? Okay, now I want to go 2 units. So do I go 2 units here and put it at negative 5, or do I go 2 units here and put it at 3? Which way do I go 2 units? It says 1/6 of the distance from A to F. So do I want to be over here or over here? You want to be at negative 5. I'm going just 1/6 of the distance. I'm not going very far. I'm only going 1/6 of the distance. So I want to be at negative 5. That's where it's going to be at, right? Does that make sense? Negative 5 is going to be the coordinate point. So x is going to be at negative 5. Make sense? Yeah? Okay, now these next two are going to be confusing. You ready? Bear with me. They're not hard, but there's a little bit of writing to do them. Okay? All right, ready? Woo! Find R on NM. N is here, M is here, okay? Such that it is 1/4 of the distance from N to M. Okay? 1/4 of the distance from N to M, okay? 1/4 of the distance. It'd be like if I would separate this into 4 pieces, right? Like this. Okay? 1/4 of the distance from N to M is going to be like right here. right? That's about a fourth of the way. It's like separating this into 4 chunks, right? I want to put my dot right here. So this is where this coordinate's going to end up, but I want to know exactly where that coordinate is. Okay? Here's how we do this. Okay? So in the x direction, here we go. In the x direction, and then we're going to talk about the y direction. Okay? Total. Do you need a paper, darling?
Sure.
Sure.
I'm just gonna make you re-explain it next period.
Oh, the paper's right there. Grab that one. Forgot I set it over there. Okay. I'm recording right now too, if you like, yeah. So in the x direction, all right, so let me get rid of my mess here. Okay. So let's kind of make this into a triangle thing here, and I'm gonna go over and I'm gonna go up. Okay. So in the x direction, how many have we gone over? No, we're not gonna actually do the Pythagorean theorem. How many have I gone over? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5? Did I go over 5? Yeah? And how many did I go up? 6. Okay, I went in the x direction 5 and I went in the y direction 6 to get from one point to the other, right? I want to go a fourth of that distance, okay? So I'm going to multiply each one of these coordinates by 1/4, okay? What is a fourth of 5? 1.25 or 5/4, right? We'll put it as a decimal. What is 6 times a fourth? 1.5. Okay, so here's what this means. I've gone over 5 and up 6. A fourth of that is over 1.25 and up 1.5, okay? So I want to go from this point, I want to go this direction 1.25 and this direction 1.5 to land me right here, okay? Now, if I'm starting at -3, -3, and I want to go over 1.25, that's like adding 1.25 to the x. I'm adding 1.5 to the y. Where will my new coordinate be at? This chunk right here. Where will that little guy be? -1.75, comma, -1.5, right? That is the coordinates of this point. Does that look about right? Yeah, I think so. Okay, so we just look at how many you've gone over, how many you've gone up, and then do a fourth of that, and then just add those back to those specific coordinates, right? That's not too bad, right? Okay, the next one's doing exactly the same thing, but they're going to word it just a hair different, okay? Are you ready for the next one? It says, find a point C on AB such that the ratio from AC to CB is 1:4, okay? The ratio of AC to CB is 1:4. Is C going to be closer to A or closer to B? If they say 1:4, that means this has a distance of 1 and this has a distance of 4. So is C going to be closer to A or closer to B? Closer to A. C is going to be like here, right? Now here's the deal. When they say it has a ratio of 1:4, this has a distance of 1 and this has a distance of like 4. So it's actually 1/5 of the distance, right? Okay, if they say it's a ratio of 1:4, that means my whole length is 5 units long, basically, right? Or separating it into 5 chunks. So I want to go a fifth of the distance, right? Okay, so here's the deal. Let's make this into a triangle and let's figure out how many we've gone down and how many we've gone over. Okay? All right, so in the x direction and in the y direction. In the x direction. X direction is to the right. How many we've gone to the right? 5 on the bottom. Okay, how many have we gone down?
4.
Yep, I'm going to say -4 so that we know that we've gone down. So we've gone 5 in the x and -4 in the y, right? Okay, now I want to multiply each one of those by 1/5, right? We're going a fifth of the distance. A fifth of the distance. What's a fifth of 5? 1. What's a fifth of 4? Negative. What's 4 times a fifth? 4 times a fifth. 4/5, which is 0.8. 0.8. Okay? So, what I want to do is if I'm starting at A is at what coordinate, by the way?
6.
-4, 6. Okay, I want to add 1 to which coordinate? To the x coordinate, right? I'm going to add 1 to the -4, right? And I'm going to subtract, because it's -0.8, I'm I'm going to subtract 0.8 to the 6, right? So the coordinate for C, which is this guy right here, is at where?
-3.
-3, comma,
5.
5.2. That is the coordinate of our C point. Does that make sense? Yeah, all you're going to do is just do those coordinates over, right? Good, good? Okay, that is all. I don't know. I'm gonna shut the recording off.